Welcome to CETV, your show about community education, people, places, and things. Let's have a look at today's show. Hi, I'm Doug Greer, Dean of Community Education at Waubonsee Community College, and I'm here today talking to Greg Holden, who is an author, editor, entrepreneur, and a website designer. Greg is on campus today to present on the three-step profit plan, how to make money online using websites, social media, and storefronts. It's one of our Brighter Futures Initiative programs that we're featuring this year. Greg is the author of more than 40 books that provide readers with the tools they need to succeed in business, e-commerce, and personal computing. Some of his well-known titles include Starting an Online Business for Dummies, Secrets of eBay Millionaires, and the eBay Power Users Bible. He's also the founder of several e-commerce ventures and has worked as a project manager at 2 Chicago universities. Greg, welcome.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you. Greg, just to get started, in addition to writing about e-commerce, you've also launched some of your own e-commerce ventures. And could you just tell us a little bit more about your own experience selling things online and what you learned from that experience?
Sure, glad to. Believe it or not, I wrote several books about selling online, telling people how to sell online before I actually ever sold online.
Right.
I was invited by a publisher in mid-2000s to cover a conference of power sellers, eBay power sellers in Atlanta. And I went down there and talked to these people who were, you have to gross at least $1,000 on eBay to be a power seller. And these people were technically millionaires, many of them. So they were really successful. And when I went and talked to them, I realized these people, you know, they put on their shoes one at a time just like I do. They're people just like me. And then the light bulb went off and I thought, you know, I could do this too. Maybe I should give this a try and see what it's like to be a power seller, and so I can write better books. So I started to sell online. I love to go to secondhand stores, so I would scrounge around and looking for real high-end shoes. I like shoes, like Mephisto, for instance, real expensive ones, and you can sometimes find those in good shape. So I began to do this and started to sell on eBay, and within 2 months I was a power seller, to my surprise.
Okay.
I did okay.
And you were essentially selling used shoes?
More or less, yes.
Okay.
The occasional antique I would dig out of a box, but yeah, mostly shoes. And I discovered, first of all, I discovered I liked it. And I discovered it's kind of exciting. It's exciting to watch a sale while it's going on, to see who's watching it and bidding on it. I learned to be very careful with the details. Details are so important with selling online. And be positive. Talk up your products and your business. Come up with a system. Be organized. And perhaps the most important thing, the customer is always right.
Okay, interesting. Well, we'll be back after this short break to talk some more with Greg. Hi, we're back with Greg Holden, who is an author, entrepreneur, editor, and website designer, and we're talking about e-commerce. Greg, before the break, we were talking a little bit about your own experience selling shoes on eBay from your own perspective, experience selling online. You know, in the past, it seemed like people just started selling stuff on eBay and the money just started pouring in, or maybe that was at least just my perception. But it seems probably that e-commerce has changed over the years, particularly in the recent past. If that's true, could you maybe elaborate on how e-commerce has changed over time?
Sure. Certainly we've gone past e-commerce 1.0, we're into 2.0, maybe we're into 3.0 for all I know. I kind of lost track. I don't keep count like that anymore. The the proportion of lone entrepreneurs starting their businesses to larger concerns has changed. I mean, now you're seeing large businesses and corporations, they all have a website, they all sell online. So that's, lone entrepreneurs are kind of in a bigger pool, and they're having a lot of competition to deal with. So that's one thing. But at the same time, there's been a maturing of the service industry that helps people get websites going, create a shopping cart, create sales. Taking photos is easier than ever before with all the new devices we have that can take really high quality photos. So sellers have a lot of choices when they need services, when they need to start a store, when they need to get payments. The choice of a service provider can solve a lot of those issues, especially the payment part. Online payments now are pretty much trusted, and it's kind of an everyday thing, whereas I remember in the 1990s there was a lot of controversy over security and hacking, and can you really pay for things online? You know, people just don't think about that now.
Right.
There's definitely less of an emphasis on auctions now. Most times people just sell things at a fixed price, and auctions aren't quite as nearly as big as they used to be.
Is that true even on eBay?
Oh, yes.
Less emphasis on the auctions
Yeah.
and more on just actually just selling it?
Right, eBay was famous as an auction site, and you know, that's a big part of eBay, but really more and more sellers are just doing the fixed price sales, and they're selling out of stores where fees are a little bit less than if they sell on auction
Okay.
without it being in a store. And really the dominant player is Amazon. Over in past years, Amazon is really thriving now. They get 100 million viewers every month, and you know, and that they've done something very smart. They're not just selling their own products on the web, but they're inviting other people to sell in their marketplace. So they're
Right.
becoming a marketplace, kind of like eBay was. They're doing it better. So those are the big changes I've seen.
Do you see that Amazon is maybe becoming the more transcendent location for this kind of activity, even more so than eBay nowadays?
More and more, yes. They have more options. And they're so easy to use. You don't have to set up a store. You don't even have to take photos. If you have something like a computer that you've upgraded your computer and you want to sell your old one, and they already have that model in the catalog, you can just put it online very easily without photographing it. You can use their stock photographs.
Oh, okay.
You add your product to
Right.
their catalog, and they list it for you, and it's just marvelous. And they have something called Fulfillment by Amazon that I'm talking about tonight, and that's essentially, they do the shipping for you too. So yeah, they're
So
really
like
the
a
leader
complete
now.
turnkey operation almost for
Yes.
somebody. Well, you know, something you said about larger businesses getting into e-commerce and selling things, you know, directly now. Is it still possible for the average person to start an online business and, you know, make a living or even just make extra money?
Oh yes,
online?
I think so. I mean, I never tell people that this is something that's going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's a slow process, and it's something that you should build up to gradually. It's a stretch goal, as a friend of mine says. Start out with a realistic goal, like you want to make a certain amount per month. You may want to make a few $100s a month, and you may want to be a power seller on eBay. And then down the road, maybe your 1-year plan or your 2-year plan is you want to be self-sufficient. And I do profile people in this talk who followed that sort of plan. But there are so many options for shopping carts, and there's even funding for people now that there wasn't 5 or 10 years ago. You can get venture capital easier, and there's sites like Kickstarter where you can put yourself out there and raise thousands of dollars to get your business off the ground from nothing. And so yes, there are many more opportunities now than there were certainly in the 2000s even.
So maybe in some respects it's even easier to get started now.
Oh, yes, indeed. I mean, and the technology is better. We have better connections generally than we did in the 1990s or the early 2000s. So yeah, yeah.
Well, what do you think maybe are some of the biggest misperceptions people hold about selling online?
People think that selling online is as easy as buying. Not at all.
Yeah.
It does take hard work. You have to remind people that you really have to roll up your sleeves, and you're going to be spending long hours. You're going to be working on the weekends. You're going to be packing things up and getting ready to go to the post office and taking things over there and maybe waiting in line and so forth. People think that buyers are fickle and that there's a lot of fraud out there. And there is. I mean, that still happens, but it's much better than it was. Buyers, especially on Amazon, are pretty trustworthy, and you don't get such high return rates as you did in the early days. People also think that there's a single perfect object that they can sell online. That's the single most frequent question I get asked. You know, what's the best thing I can sell online? You know, there is no one best thing. It needs to correspond to your passion and your enthusiasm. It has to be something that you're going to like to work with for hours and days and weeks, and you're not going to get tired of it because you love it.
Right, right. Interesting.
That's the best thing.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. We'll be back after this short break to continue our conversation with Greg. Hi, we're back with Greg Holden, author, entrepreneur, and website designer, and we're here to continue our discussion about e-commerce. Greg, how realistic is it for someone to actually be able to make a living online? Not necessarily just make some extra money, but actually make a living online. And what might be some of the pitfalls, involved in that? It seems when you look that there's maybe a lot of scams out there, or a lot of things that maybe are looking to convince people that they can just, kind of work 2 hours a week and, make a living online.
Right. That won't happen online, I don't think. It is realistic. It can be done, especially if online is not the only place you do business. It helps if you have a brick and mortar business and you're expanding to online. And you have that way you have a base of subscribers or customers, and you have some experience in selling, and you have another venue where you can connect with people. I tell people to, as I said before, set gradual goals and work up. This is where the three-part profit plan comes into, by the way, because when you have more than one store, more than one place to connect with customers, it does help you build up volume so that you can think about having an income that you might be able to support yourself full time. You need to watch out for things like drop shippers. There are people out there who, drop shippers are companies where they will do the shipping for you. They'll do everything but sell for you. You don't have the inventory, you do the selling, and they hold the inventory, and when you make a sale, they just send it off. You need to be careful with that. You need to be careful with suppliers. Sometimes you order a product, and if you haven't, you need to try it out beforehand. Sometimes if you haven't tried it out, it comes and it's falling apart, or it's not what you wanted. So you need to vet your wholesalers for sure and be careful. And that's another reason why starting out, at least with a company like Amazon and their fulfillment by Amazon, is a little more realistic for a beginner, and then maybe you can branch out to finding other wholesale suppliers and drop shippers.
Now, when you mentioned the drop shippers, what is the thing you have to look out for about them? I mean, what's the danger in using one of those entities?
Well, you're totally trusting them to hold your inventory that you're paying for, basically, and you're trusting them to send out the item when they say they will.
Right.
And if they don't send it quickly, if they pack it badly, guess who gets the complaint? It's not the drop shipper, right? You do.
It's you. Okay.
So you need to find people that are reputable and you can work with. And I suggest in my talk there are places like Worldwide Brands. That's a company that you find online, and they'll steer you to some good shippers, drop shippers.
Yeah, okay. So how does someone get started in e-commerce? I mean, do you need specialized knowledge or skills to start an online venture? Do you have to, I guess, sometimes you think you have to be a computer expert or some sort of expert in something.
Right. Well, that helps. It helps if you're a programmer, for sure. I mean, that's always good in this area. Right now, the demand is for people who can write apps. People want apps for this and that and the other, and that would be great. But if you can't and you have a good idea, you can hire someone to help you. So no, you don't necessarily need to be a programmer for sure. If you have some sales knowledge, if you have run a business before, if you run a business now, again, expanding to online and building on your clientele and building on your experience is really advisable. And if you have an area of specialized knowledge, a place where you know something that a subject better than other people do, you can even sell that. You can sell your knowledge. You can sell it as a blogger and get a small income from ads. Some people get a pretty good income from ads. It depends on your energy in placing those ads and getting people to your blog. Or you could be a knowledge aggregator. You can put the information together in a website and make it easy to find. And that way you get visitors and can eventually sell ads.
I would assume too that there's probably ways or avenues for people to maybe get training in some of those things that they're lacking, or maybe conferences or publications, some of your books perhaps.
Yeah, it's true.
Not
It's
to
true.
put that plug in, but there's probably multitudinous resources out there for people who may be feeling they're lacking in a particular area or knowledge.
Right, and community colleges are great for that, for sure, for the programming aspect of it. But it's remarkable how much you can learn online now. There are so many tutorials and YouTube videos.
Right.
People are learning. That's turning into a really big educational venue. So yeah. And you can lift yourself up and climb the learning curve online.
Right.
For sure.
Okay, great. Well, we'll be back after this short break to continue our conversation with Greg Holden. Hi, we're back to continue our conversation with Greg Holden, who is the author of Starting an Online Business for Dummies and more than 40 other business and computer titles. And Greg is on campus to present the three-step profit plan, how you can make money online using websites, social media, and storefronts. Which brings us, Greg, to the question of what is the three-step profit plan?
Well, I write for an e-commerce website now called E-commerce Bytes, and it covers auctions and online marketplaces. And I regularly profile businesses that are successful, and time and again we've encountered businesses that connect with their customers in multiple venues. They have a website, they also have a Facebook page, and a Twitter page, and a bunch of photos on Pinterest, which is another social marketing site. And they also have storefronts. They might have an eBay store. They might have a store on a smaller venue that's becoming a good alternative to eBay, like eCrater is one, or Bonanza is another. They might have 5 or 6 of these stores. So the three-part plan is combining a website with social marketing, social media, and one or more storefronts to connect with your target market from different angles. This kind of triangulation. You give your customers multiple ways to find you, and you give yourself ways to promote your different venues. You can link to your own stores, and this improves your search engine placement, and you get found better on Google, and it all kind of works together to help you compete with bigger players in the market.
So a storefront, I'm not sure I understand exactly then what a storefront is when you refer to a storefront. There's a storefront on eBay or these other sites.
It could be eBay. A storefront is a venue that you don't necessarily own. You create it, but you're pretty much renting space on someone else's marketplace. And that marketplace can be a big one like eBay or Amazon. They allow people to make stores, but it could also be a smaller one like the ones I mentioned. And some of these are very specialized venues like Artfire and Etsy, which are great for arts and crafts people. And there's lots of antique sites too.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
yeah.
So, are people able then, when you mentioned social media as one of the 3 steps or one of the 3 parts of this plan, are you able to sell things directly from these social media sites? I have a sense that that's becoming possible, or people
Oh,
are
yes.
now actually doing that. You're not necessarily, you might have a Facebook page, but you're not necessarily having to direct them back somewhere else. You can sell directly from those.
Yeah. I think I wrote about a Facebook kiosk, it was called, in 2009. Then it was pretty new. There's an online payment service for Facebook called Pavement. And in a New York Times article, they just said that they have 170,000 customers. These are 170,000 businesses, presumably, that are selling on Facebook directly
okay.
and getting payments from Facebook. So yes, you're going to see this more and more as Facebook has gone public and they need to generate revenue. You're going to see more commerce kind of invading that what was pretty much exclusively a social sphere.
Right.
And now you're seeing them charge for even posts to promote your individual posts. So anyway, the short answer is yes. Yes, you can have a Facebook store. And a Twitter store, believe it or not.
Really? Okay.
Yes, really. I've seen it.
Twitter is actually something I don't really understand, but maybe just because I haven't really tried to understand it yet. So one of the books that you wrote, Secrets of the eBay Millionaires, provides lessons that were learned from very successful eBay sellers that you interviewed. Could you just share with us what were some of those lessons? What were some of the key lessons that you learned?
Sure. You know, one of the best lessons is one I got when I first did the first edition of this book we're talking about, Starting an Online Business for Dummies. Plan for success. Give yourself a chance to be successful. Give yourself a chance to grow. Don't necessarily keep your vision small. You may start out small, but keep in your mind that where you want to go eventually. So order enough inventory. Order more than enough, especially in October and November, just before the holiday rush. 2, work real hard. I think I said that already.
Yeah.
3, if you've sold before and have existing customers, the web is a great place to expand. You know, it's not just a place to unload your unwanted inventory. You can really work together with your brick and mortar store. And build loyalty. Do what you can to build loyalty and community in your customer base and connect to people one-to-one. The web is for a place where you never see people face-to-face, it's a remarkably personal medium. It's a great place to strike up really good relationships with your customers. And Twitter can do that, by the way.
Okay, I'll take your word on that one. So basically it's
Twitter.
customer engagement.
Yes.
You're talking about it's a really good tool for customer engagement,
Yeah,
which everybody's trying to do.
It's kind of a soft sell, but you can do it on Facebook and other social media sites, yes.
Great, okay. And we'll be back after the short break to end our conversation with Greg Holden. And we're back to continue our conversation with Greg Holden. Greg, I'm going to take a leap of faith. You've done a lot of different things, but I have a sense that probably your first love is really writing.
Absolutely. I'm one of these people who say, I've always wanted to be a writer. That is true, especially fiction. I've always wanted to be a fiction writer and always written fiction on my own. I didn't do that I started out being I didn't do that initially. I started out as a reporter for my local newspaper. Then I got a position at University of Chicago. I was an editor in the publications department there. And I remember 1994, 1995, a friend of mine down the hall would come over and say, "Hey, look at this thing called Mosaic." And I would go into his computer and say, "What is that?" "Oh, it's a web browser. It's the web. It's the World Wide Web." And it really captivated us.
Yeah.
My supervisor in my office happened to be married to a columnist for the Sun-Times who covered computers. And he wrote some books, and he was recruiting authors. And I came to him with an idea about doing what we did in that publications office on the internet. So I worked real hard and wrote a book in about 6 weeks. It's called Publishing on the World Wide Web. And it was really one of the first books about creating websites.
It must have been, yeah.
Unfortunately, I wrote about the Mac. It was totally oriented to the Mac, and in 1995, the Mac was not the happening thing it is today.
Right, exactly, yeah. Maybe a little case of bad timing there, but yes.
So, but I did go on. I discovered I really liked this and was okay at it, and I eventually quit my day job and started writing books full time. While I was
So how do you get, because you've written so many books, how do you keep getting offers to write all of these books? That's not saying you're a bad writer or anything, but how do you get these jobs? Do you seek them out, or do they come to you?
Sometimes they do come to me. I don't have to do proposals the way I used to. I do have an agent, something I do heartily recommend for anybody getting into the publishing world. I mean, when I don't want to deal with contracts. I don't want to deal with that part of it. And I have someone who helps me with that. And he goes out and finds projects, definitely.
So early on, did you find yourself having to do a lot of proposals then?
Oh, well,
A lot of
I'll tell you the truth, in the
ideas,
1990s, that wasn't a problem.
Really? Okay.
There weren't so many books about the web and
Right.
Even in individual software programs.
Yeah.
I wrote books about Netscape. Remember the browser called
Yeah,
Netscape?
oh, yeah.
It became Mozilla. I wrote a couple books about that, just because there weren't any.
Right. So to some respects, you were kind of in the right place at the right time.
Yes, I guess so.
Sort of catching that upward curve of interest in the web and software and that sort of thing. So what sort of advice would you have for somebody who was interested in being an author today, particularly in the kinds of things that you write, or found yourself writing anyway, the nonfiction or the business titles and that sort of thing?
I guess at the risk of being redundant, I'd say what I say in this talk, and find your passion, find what you really love to do, and pursue that, you know, and don't try and do it all yourself. Get people to help you. Try and find an agent or editors or people to give you advice if you can. There are lots of writers groups now where you can join user communities and have people even read parts of your work, and you can find agents online and even connect with publishers. The whole self-publishing thing I haven't gotten into myself, but that is more of a viable option. Even creating your own, you know, book and selling it out there on Amazon or wherever.
Great, interesting. Well, thanks for being with us today, Greg. It's very interesting, and appreciate your time.
Thank
and
you.
Enlightening us about e-commerce.
Okay, thank you.
And Greg, how can people reach you if they're interested in some more information?
I have a website. It's easy, gregholden.com, and there's a contact form on there, and you can. That's the best way to get to me.
And it's Greg with one G, right?
That's GREGHOLDEN.com.
Great, thank you. And community education, you can always reach us at 630-466-2360, and we're in the auditorium building in the Sugar Grove campus of Waubonsie Community College.